So let's start with the observation. So we still have two research methods we haven't looked at. The first one is observation and the second one is experiment. And today first we are going to discuss the observation. Well, as it in its name, observation is the method when someone who is qualified and is familiar with the research method, the qualified person is observing something, somebody, in a way that is systematic. So, other than just a normal observation, observation as a research method is something that is being observed in a presupposed way or in a way that is scientific. If you are the observer, you have to make sure that you are not looking at something in a subjective way, but you try to look at something from an objective viewpoint. You can observe facts, actions, and also behavior of people. And the key elements of observation is that there is no connection between the observer and the observant, so the person or action or fact that you are observing. It has a descriptive nature that you try to describe what is happening. You try to draw some conclusions from the situations. And once again, these conclusions are usually not subjective but are based on some kind of logic. In most of the cases, observation in itself doesn't constitute a separate research method. In most cases, it is used together with other different researches. So for example, eye tracking or eye camera is also an observation, but most of the time it is not used alone. It has to be supplemented with in-depth interviews or focus group discussions. The observation can have two different subtypes. First of all, the observation could be something that is unstructured. So probably if you have never heard of the concepts before, but you would like to do an investigation of a topic, then you don't know how to structure it. You don't know what facts you would like to look at when you are observing something. So without any help, you are observing something and trying to note down everything that has happened. However, on the other hand, you have the second type, which is a structured observation. Now in this case, you have a clearly defined problem that has previously occurred, and you also have some criteria based on which you are going to observe your subject. But in this case, let's say if I would like to observe how people behave in shops now with the COVID-19 pandemic, what I would do is I would have some presupposed facts that I would like to look at. For example, I would like to look at the number of people that are in the shop. The number of people, depending on which type of the day or what kind of day it is. It is a weekday, is it a weekend, or is it morning, is it the afternoon, evening, or at night? So we can also talk about the day itself. And I can also look at what type of goods people buy. So these are already 4 criteria that I can take into account. So in case of observation, you have different factors that you have to take into account. The first one is the subject of the observation, so who you are going to look at, the degree of consciousness of the observant, how much he or she knows that he or she is being observed. The third one is the setting of the observation. 4 is the participation of the observer, him or herself. 5 is the degree of standardization, and number 6 is the registration and different types of observation. Well, we are going to look at these in details. So if you turn to the subject of observation, we can see that we can basically research anything. This is what we have discussed at the very beginning of market research. What can we research? Well, basically everything that's been on the market or that is on the market or that's going to be on the market. And this is basically the case in case of observation, that what or who can be observed? Well, everything could be observed, or anyone could be observed from the marketing perspective as well. So if you look at the degree of consciousness of your observant, it can be, basically there are 2 different categorizations. So who or whatever you are looking at, the person who you are examining can either be aware that he or she is being examined or unaware. Well, these 2 types are called, the first one is undisguised observation, and the second one is disguised. Well, in case of the undisguised, then the subjects know that they are being observed, But in the second case, in this guy's observation, the subjects do not know that they are being observed. Well, you see that it has some advantages and disadvantages, that you know that you are being observed. Because let's say if I told you that at the moment somebody is observing this class and observing how you comment and how many of you are here, then you would say, oh my god, is this going to influence me? Maybe yes, maybe you will comment more, there would be more people here, or there will be no people here. So we don't know how an observation and the fact that you know that you are being observed, how it would change your reactions. And it's the same not just in case of this market research class, but let's say that people show you, or researchers show you, let's say an online magazine with different products. Let's say we have Tesco's online magazine and you look at it and you look at the product. Well, yeah, first of all, you look at it and it's okay. But second time, they give you another magazine from Tesco where you can see the sale and where you can see the products, and then they give you an eye camera. And on this eye camera, they will be tracking where you look at. Well, in this case, do you think you would look at the same things? Well, we may never know, right? Let's go on with the setting of the observation. Well, the observation setting can also have two different types. Probably the best way to observe somebody or something is when it's in its natural habitat. So let's say it's the best to observe people of how they buy or how they purchase food if we go to a supermarket. That's the best place, because if it's an unnatural setting, maybe I create a laboratory where, let's say, I put certain food on the counter and I ask people to come in here and try to buy something, they will feel totally weird and they might react in a different way. So we have the natural setting, which is probably the best way to look at them, and the contrived setting, which is the setting that we have set up ourselves and is specially designed for recording their behavior. Okay, in terms of the observer, so if you look at the observation from the viewpoint of the observer, we can see that the observer could be many things. The observer could be a person like us, we can observe things, but we can also use certain machines to help us with the observation. And machines could be, let's say, what we have already discussed, the eye tracking, when you have an eye camera built into, let's say, your glasses. You can have an eye camera which is connected to your monitor. We have different versions. And they even have these machines used when they are trying to track where you go in different stores. So when they are tracking where people go or how people flow actually in the stores. And this customer flow inside the store can give them very good information of where you go and what you might look at. So we have this mechanical observation. And in case of human observation, you yourselves and your two eyes will help you with observing what you would like to observe. Well, in case of mechanical observations, you already see that there is the eye tracking, the eye camera. And eye cameras are extremely good because you can check and you can know based on the eye camera's results that how many seconds does your respondent's eye spend on one specific area of, let's say, a web page. You can also track for how long they looked at it, where did they look the most, and what did they focus on. We can also look at response latency. This is basically the amount of time the respondent deliberates before actually answering a question. This can also give you good information how much he or she tries to think about this question or problem and how much time she spends on answering it. Here, probably the most interesting is the neuromarketing, which is basically brainwave research, and it tries to measure the brain's response to certain marketing activities. And this is probably the most questionable way how you can research marketing, because you see that in case of neuromarketing, they use an MRI machine, which is normally not used in marketing, but which is normally used in healthcare. In this case, at least these two different subjects or areas of research have to come together, so that's why it's extremely hard to organize, extremely hard to find people who would actually subject themselves to an MRI, let's say study, or an MRI examination, where actually you have to have not just your mind involved, but also your body will be affected, because you don't have to just lie there, but there have to be some contrast material inserted into you. So first of all, this is one of the big drawbacks, that it's very hard to get people to actually assign for this, and it's extremely hard to get machines, because usually, especially here in Hungary, these machines are regularly used in healthcare. Okay, but if we are not relying on machines, but we are relying on humans, if your observer is somebody who's a human like us, then in this case we have once again two different methods. The first method is that your human might reveal that he or she is the observer, so you as the person who is being observed know that you are being observed. And now once again, this has some disadvantages, because if you know that you are being observed, you might react in a different way, you might give different answers than initially or otherwise you would have given. And in this case, it can be an external participation, meaning that the subject doesn't involve him or herself in the process that is being observed. So let's say if we have in this market research online class, if we had an observer who reveals himself, then he would just write in here that, "Hi, my name is, I don't know, Peter, and I am observing you today." Then we would definitely know that he is here, and he revealed himself for us, that he's observing us. But he is not answering any of my questions, he is not taking part in the class. This is one method. But the other method could be that he also participates. He reveals himself, he writes here that he is observing us, and he is trying to keep up with the pace of the course, trying to understand things, and also trying to answer me. Well, the other case could be where the observer doesn't reveal him or herself. Let's say, same case, we would have this live session here, and suddenly we see that there are not 3 people here before. In this case, I might assume that this is one of my students, but I wouldn't recognize that this is somebody who is not from the classroom. And once again, this can also be an external observation, that this person doesn't affect anybody, we don't even take notice that he's here, or it can be participatory. This person integrates into our community, you also think that he or she is a student here, and we handle him or her as a student. That's the second case. Both of these methods that we mentioned have some advantages, disadvantages, and you will have to record your observations, and in this case an observation guide can help you, or you have a recording sheet where you can write everything that you think is important in terms of your research. You can also have your checklists, field notes, and can also take pictures, but probably taking a video of the whole observation would make it much easier. Well, we have already mentioned some observation types. I mentioned in case of in-store observation, I have already mentioned that we have a consumer flow tracking, so that it can show where customers go, especially if you remember small Tesco, almost opposite the faculty building. Well, I usually go there, and it doesn't matter if I need dairy products, I always pass the dairy products aisle, because I got used to going that way. So this flow can show Tesco that, okay, I need to go this way all the time, so let's put some things there that she might be interested in and she might buy. We can also track how many consumers go to the stores, how they behave in stores. We can measure the effectiveness of different in-store marketing activities. So all in all, observation, I think, has lots of advantages, because in questionnaires you wouldn't be able to ask people of how they behave, because either they don't know, or they don't want to tell you, or they cannot tell you because they don't remember. But with observation, you will be able to see those patterns of behavior, what you otherwise wouldn't be able to 100% get in other ways.